I'm saying we've got a real problem, and I'm tired of Republicans and Democrats who either want Republicans who want to burn the place to the ground, and Democrats, with all due respect, who want to offer a plan that gets it through their end of their second term of their presidency, and then screws me and my kids when it's over. And until we do that, we have to deal with the extraction that is at foot. It is the reason the financial markets are behaving the way they're behaving. That is a mathematical fact. This is not some opinion. This is a mathematical fact. Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America.
The panel keeps talking about why they lost 3 or 4 million votes at the last election. I think part of it is when I hear politicians slipping into using the phrases like, we've had 10 years in power. I think you're in office to serve the people, and when you start talking about being in power, you really make people feel that you're in it for the wrong reason.
Democrats aren't doing it. Republicans are not doing it. An entire integrated system, financial system, trading system, taxing system that was created by both parties over a period of 2 decades is at work on our entire country right now.
I just wonder whether you think we're all ignorant and whether you really think that little of us, that you just can't answer questions. We have a right to have questions answered. We saw it tonight. Teflon Dave, nothing, you know, nothing sticks. He doesn't actually answer anything despite constant questions. Ed Balls, you're just as bad. You constantly say, I hear you. But, or however, just answer the questions, because you're just making a mockery of the whole system.
What about him?
And I'm sorry to lose my temper, but I tell you what, I've been coming on TV for 3 years doing this, and the fact of the matter is that there's a refusal on both the Democratic and the Republican side of the aisle to acknowledge the mathematical problem, which is that the United States of America is being extracted. It's being extracted through banking, it's being extracted through trade, and it's being extracted through taxation. And there's not a single politician that has stepped forward, Susan, to deal with this.
But there's only one right now. The leader of the free world, whether you like it or not, the President of the United States is arguably one of the most powerful individuals we have out there.
But
and
Susan,
he's
what you're saying is exactly the point that Dylan is making. It's not about one guy. It's about all of them.
Does the government work for us, or do we work for the government? What if Democrats and Republicans were 2 wings of the same bird of prey? Tonight, what if elections don't matter? What if elections were actually useful tools for social control? What if they just provided the populace with meaningless participation in a process that validates an establishment that never meaningfully changes? What if that establishment doesn't want and doesn't have the consent of the governed? What if the 2-party system was actually a mechanism used to limit so-called public opinion? What if there were more than 2 sides to every issue, but the 2 parties wanted to box you into a corner, one of their corners? What if there's no such thing as public opinion, because every thinking person has opinions that are uniquely his own? What if what we call public opinion was just a manufactured narrative that makes it easier to convince people that if their views are different, then there's something wrong with that, or there's something wrong with them? What if the whole purpose of the Democratic and Republican parties was not to expand voters' choices, but to limit them? What if the widely perceived differences between the 2 parties was just an illusion? What if the heart of the government policy remains the same, no matter who's in the White House?
Russell Brand, who are you to edit a political magazine?
Well, I just suppose like a person who's been politely asked by an attractive woman. I don't know what the typical criteria is. I don't know many people that edit political magazines. Boris, he used to do one, didn't he? So I'm a person with crazy hair, quite a good sense of humour, don't know much about politics, I'm ideal.
But is it true you don't even vote?
Yeah, no, I don't vote.
Well, how do you have any authority to talk about politics then?
Well, I don't get my authority from this pre-existing paradigm, which is quite narrow and only serves a few people. I look elsewhere for alternatives that might be of service to humanity. Alternate means alternate political systems.
They being?
Well, I've not invented it yet, Jeremy. I had to do a magazine last week. I've had a lot on my plate. But I say, but here's the thing it shouldn't do. Shouldn't destroy the planet. Shouldn't create massive economic disparity. Shouldn't ignore the needs of the people. The burden of proof is on the people with the power, not people like doing a magazine.
How do you imagine the people get power?
Well, I imagine there are sort of hierarchical systems that have been preserved through generations.
They get power by being voted in.
Well,
That's
say
how
that,
they
Jeremy,
get it.
but
You
like
can't even be asked to vote.
It's quite a narrow prescriptive parameter that changes within the.
In a democracy, that's how it works.
Well, I don't think it's working very well, Jeremy. Given that the planet is being destroyed, given that there is economic disparity of a huge degree, what are you saying? There's no alternative. There's no alternative.
No, I'm not
just this
saying
system.
that. I'm saying if you
Brilliant.
can't be asked to vote, why should we be asked to listen to your political point of view?
You don't have to listen to my political point of view, but it's not that I'm not voting out of apathy. I'm not voting out of absolute indifference and weariness and exhaustion from the lies, treachery, deceit of the political class that has been going on for generations now, and which has now reached fever pitch, where we have a disenfranchised, disillusioned, despondent underclass that are not being represented by that political system. So voting for it is tacit complicity with that system, and that's not something I'm offering up.
Well, why don't you change it then?
I'm trying to.
Well, why don't you start by voting?
I don't think it works. People have voted already, and that's what's created the current paradigm.
When did you last vote?
Never.
You've never ever voted?
No. Do you think that's really bad?
So you struck an attitude, what, before the age of 18?
Well, I was busy being a drug addict at that point because I come from the kind of social conditions that are exacerbated by an indifferent system that really just administrates for large corporations and ignores the population that it was voted in to serve.
You're blaming the political class of the fact you had a drug problem?
No. I'm saying I was part of a social and economic class that is underserved by the current political system, and drug addiction is one of the problems it creates when you have huge, underserved, impoverished populations. People get drug problems and also don't feel like they want to engage with the current political system because they see that it doesn't work for them. They see that it makes no difference. They see that they're not served.
Well,
I say that
it doesn't
the apathy,
work for them if they don't bother to vote.
Jeremy, my darling, I'm not saying that the apathy doesn't come from us, the people. The apathy comes from the politicians. They are apathetic to our needs. They're only interested in servicing the needs of corporations. Look at what ain't the Tories going to court and to taking the EU to court because they're trying to curtail bank bonuses. Is that what's happening at the moment in our country? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, there is.
So why am I going to tune in for that?
You don't believe in democracy.
No,
you want a revolution, don't you?
The planet is being destroyed. We are creating an underclass. We are exploiting poor people all over the world, and the genuine, legitimate problems of the people are not being addressed by our political class.
All of those things may be true.
They are true.
But you took... I wouldn't argue with you about many of them.
Well, how come I feel so cross with you? It can't just be because of that beard. It's gorgeous.
It's possibly
And
because...
if the Daily Mail don't want it, I do. I'm against them. Grow it longer. Tangle it into your armpit hair.
You are a very trivial man.
What do you think? I am trivial?
Yes.
A minute ago, you were having a go at me because I want a revolution. Now I'm trivial.
I'm not having a go at you because you want a revolution. Many people want a revolution, but I'm asking you what it will be like.
Well, I think what it won't be like is a huge disparity between rich and poor, where 300 Americans have the same amount of wealth as the 85 million poorest Americans, where there is an exploited and underserved underclass that are being continually ignored, where welfare is slashed while Cameron and Osborne go to court to defend the rights of bankers to continue receiving their bonuses. That's all I'm saying.
What's the scheme? That's all I'm asking. What's the scheme? You talk vaguely about revolution. What is it?
I think a socialist egalitarian system based on the massive redistribution of wealth, heavy taxation of corporations and massive responsibility for energy companies and any company that's exploiting the environment. I think they should be I think the very concept of profit should be hugely reduced. David Cameron says profit isn't a dirty word. I say profit is a filthy word, because wherever there is profit there is also deficit, and this system currently doesn't address these ideas. And so why would anyone vote for it? Why would anyone be interested in it?
Who would levy these taxes?
I think we do need to, there needs to be a centralised administrative system, but built
on...
yes,
there needs to be a government.
Well, we might maybe call it something else. Call them like the admin bods, so they don't get
And how would they be chosen?
Jeremy, don't ask me to sit here in an interview with you in a bloody hotel room and devise a global utopian system. I'm merely pointing out that
You're calling for revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm calling for change. I'm calling for genuine alternatives.
But there are many people who would agree with you.
Good.
The current system is not engaging with all sorts of problems. Yes. And they feel apathetic. Really apathetic.
Yes.
But if they were to take you seriously and not to vote...
Yeah, they shouldn't vote. They should. That's one thing they should do. Don't bother voting. Because then when it reaches... There's a point. So these little valves, these sort of like little cosy little valves of recycling and Prius and turn up somewhere, it stops us reaching the point where we think, oh, this is enough now. Stop voting. Stop pretending. Wake up. Be in reality now. Time to be in reality now. Why vote? We know it's not going to make any difference. We know that already. So, you know, I had more impact at West Ham United, cheering them on, and they lost the City unnecessarily Saturday.
Okay, well, now you're being facetious.
Well, facetiousness has as much value as seriousness. I think you're making the mistake of mistaking seriousness.
You're not going to solve world problems by facetiousness.
We're not going to solve them with the current system. At least facetiousness is funny.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, Jeremy. So listen, so let's approach this optimistically. You've spent your whole career berating and haranguing politicians, and then when, like me, a comedian goes, yeah, they're all worthless, what's the point in engaging with any of them? You sort of have a go at me because I'm not poor anymore.
Well, I'm not having a go at you about that. I'm just asking you why we should take you seriously when you're so unspecific.
You don't have to take... Well, firstly, I don't mind if you take me seriously. I'm here just to draw attention to a few ideas. I just want to have a little bit of a laugh. I'm saying there are people with alternative ideas that are far better qualified than I am, and far better qualified, more importantly, than the people that are currently doing that job, because they're not attempting to solve these problems. They're not. They're attempting to placate the population. The measures that are currently being taken around climate change are indifferent, will not solve the problem.
It's possible as human beings they're simply overwhelmed by the scale of the problem.
Not really. Well, possibly. It might be that. I mean, but that's sort of just semantics, really. Whether they're overwhelmed by it or tacitly maintaining it because of habitual life. I mean, like, mate, this is what I noticed when I was in that Houses of Parliament. It's decorated exactly the same as Eton. It's decorated exactly the same as Oxford. So a certain type of people goes in there and thinks, oh, this makes me nervous. And another type of people go in there and go, this is how it should be. And I think that's got to change now. We can no longer have erroneous, duplicitous systems held in place unless it's for the only systems that serve the planet and serve the population of the planet can be allowed to survive. Not ones that serve elites, be they political or corporate elites. And this is what's currently happening.
You don't really believe that.
I completely believe it. Don't look at me all weary, like you're at a fireside with a pipe in your beard.
Ed Miliband wasn't elite.
Well, he went to the same primary school as Boris, though, didn't he?
He did, but he then went to a comprehensive school in North London.
Well, that's very good. That's all well and good. But what I'm saying is that within the existing paradigm, the change is not dramatic enough, not radical enough. So you can well understand public disturbances and public dissatisfaction when there are not genuine changes and genuine alternatives being offered. I say when there is a genuine alternative, a genuine option, then vote for that. But until then, don't bother. Why pretend? Why be complicit in this ridiculous illusion?
Because by the time somebody comes along you might think it worth voting for, it may be too late.
I don't think so, because the time is now. These movements are already occurring. It's happening everywhere. We're in a time where communication is instantaneous, and there are communities all over the world. The Occupy movement made a difference, even if only in that it introduced to the popular public lexicon the idea of the 1% versus the 99%. People for the first time in a generation are aware of massive corporate and economic exploitation. These things are not nonsense, and these subjects are not being addressed. No one's doing anything about tax havens. No one's doing anything about their political affiliations and financial affiliations of the Conservative Party. So until people start addressing things that are actually real, why wouldn't I be facetious? Why would I take it seriously? Why would I encourage a constituency of young people that are absolutely indifferent to vote? Why would we? Aren't you bored? Aren't you more bored than anyone? Ain't you been talking to them year after year, listening to their lies, their nonsense? Then it's this one gets in, then it's that one gets in. But the problem continues. Why are we going to continue to contribute to this facade?
I'm surprised you can be facetious when you're that angry about it.
Yeah, I am angry. I am angry. Because for me it's real. Because for me, it's not just some peripheral thing that I turn up once in a while to a church fete for. For me, this is what I come from. This is what I care about.
Do you see any hope?
Remember that? Yeah, totally. There's going to be a revolution. It's totally going to happen. I think not only I ain't got a flicker of doubt. This is the end. This is time to wake up. I remember I see you in that programme where you look at your ancestors and you saw that when your grandmother had to brass herself or got fucked over by the aristocrats who ran her gaff. You cried because you knew that it was unfair and unjust. And that was, what was that, a century ago? That's happening to people now. I just come from a woman who's being treated like that. I've just been talking to a woman today who's being treated like that. So if we can engage that feeling, instead of some moment of lachrymose sentimentality trotted out on the TV for people to pore over emotional porn, if we can engage that feeling and change things, why wouldn't we? Why is that naive? Why is that not my right because I'm an actor? I mean, I've taken the right. I don't need the right from you. I don't need the right from anybody. I'm taking it.
Well, I don't enjoy you, and you know you don't enjoy.
Hi, this is AF Charters for A Critical State. Today you join us in the city-state of the City of London. You heard correctly. This is a city-state. It's not part of the UK in the proper jurisdiction, okay? So we're going to be talking today to Dom and Vin from Standing in Commerce. So let's go to the scene of the Fire of London, which is what the monument here commemorates. This is a major historical event that happened in 1666, and there's a lot of hidden history that you need to know about this. So here I am walking into Pudding Lane. This is a really historic place, and I'm joined by a couple of gentlemen who are going to fill us in on some of the history. So I have Dr. Dominic here from Standing in Commerce, nice to meet you, and I have Vincent, who's also going to be filling us in on the judicial system and law. So first of all, we're going to move over to Dominic because he's studied in great detail what has been happening here in London in 1666. And I don't mean just what was happening here in Pudding Lane, but events that were happening off camera, shall we say, in Westminster.
We like the idea of making it better, but we just can't be bothered. So what more can we do? Yes, we like the idea of making it better, but we just can't be bothered.
So Dominic, Pudding Lane, the Great Fire of London, 1666. We learn about this in our school history. Some of us that live close enough, like myself, will be lucky enough to do a trip to come and see Pudding Lane, where the bakery was set light. We'd hear about the Great Plague and how it was a terrible event.
Absolutely. But just like when Rome burned, when London burned, there were great changes happening over in Parliament, not so far from here.
What kind of changes were those?
Well, the subrogation of men and women's rights.
In what way were they subrogated?
Well, there was an act passed. It's like when Rome burned, when London burned, there were great changes happening over in Parliament, not so far from here.
What kind of changes were those?
Well, the subrogation of men and women's rights.
In what way were they subrogated?
Well, there was an act passed whilst London was burning.
Right. So literally while the fire is burning down here?
Well, it takes a long time to bring a statute to the books.
Right.
It takes a lot of architecture and a lot of thinking by the judiciary, and then to debate it through Parliament.
Sure.
And obviously the Black Death was carried on for quite some time here.
Certainly.
But the question I would ask is, what was the Cestui KV Act of 1666 being put on the statute books whilst, you know, the proverbial hell was happening on the streets of London?
Now, for those of you who are not quite sure what this act is that Dominic has just talked about, we will actually be putting links on the website and probably bringing up information about this at the end of the show. So don't worry if you can't follow the intricate detail. It's much more important to understand the bigger picture. So Dominic, this Cestui Act, what did it actually say?
Well, after several hundred readings, we finally came to the conclusion that it would appear that all of the citizens, all the men and women of the United Kingdom were declared dead and lost beyond the seas.
What does that mean then?
Well, the state took everybody and everybody's property into trust, and the state became the trustee husband behind all the titles to both the people and their property.
So the state took control by saying everyone is dead,
and until a living man or woman comes back and claims their titles, and when they do prove that they are alive, then the titles can be revested and they can claim for damages.
Okay, so essentially where we are right now is that still today here in 2009, that legally speaking, you and I, on camera, we are dead.
Absolutely, because you didn't claim your titles back after 7 years, as it says in the statutes.
Wait a minute, 7 years after 1666?
7 years after you were born.
Oh, really? So I have time from when I'm born to when I'm 7 to claim?
Yes. Otherwise, you are dead beyond reasonable doubt.
Okay.
And therefore, the state takes your property and your body into trust.
That's fascinating. And this all came about as a result of the Great Fire?
Well, it could be a bit of a smokescreen.
Right. That's a nice metaphor. So the Sesticate Act fundamentally underlines that you or I are dead. Now, does that have anything to do with when we go to court and we're not allowed to represent ourselves?
Absolutely. We're starting to see the beginning of the creation of a legal fiction of a dead entity.
What is a legal fiction?
Is a construct on paper. So when you get a bill or a summons from a court, it's always in capital letters.
Right.
Now, last time I went into a graveyard, all of the on all the graves, all the names, all the men and women, were in capital letters.
Right.
That's mortmain, probate, death.
Right.
So the state or the corporation that writes to you in all capital letters is writing to a dead legal fiction.
So do I have a legal fiction?
A legal fiction was created when your mother informed the state or the Registrar General that there was a new vessel in town when you were birthed. So you have a birth certificate just like a ship.
Now, a birth certificate is spelled B-I-R-T-H, but we're talking about a berth, as in B-E-R-T-H, which is where you would moor a boat. Is that correct?
Correct. Now, your mother had a birth canal,
right?
Just like a ship.
Okay, so
I think you could say that beyond reasonable doubt that the legal fiction is classified as a vessel, and as we now understand, is floating on the sea of commerce.
So I'm an actor in commerce?
Yes, you have a legal fiction which allows you to operate in commerce. And it was created when your mother and father registered you and got a birth certificate from the Registrar General.
But they didn't know anything about this, right?
They didn't know anything about it. They just thought that they were doing the same thing as happened before in the 18th century and before, where people would go to the church and ask the priest or the vicar to give them a slip of paper and put them into the local registry in the church and give them a copy for their own Holy Bible at home.
So when did this change over?
In about 1837, when the Births, Deaths and Marriages Act and the post of Registrar General came into being, and his job was to collect all of the records from all the churches.
Now, the word regus I find very interesting, because register comes from regus. That means the Queen.
Absolutely.
Or the Crown. So that would actually mean that children are property of the Crown. Is that correct?
The legal fictions are indeed.
So does that have any ramifications for our viewers?
Well, the Registrar General holds everybody in custody.
So essentially everyone that is a UK citizen, registered with a passport, national insurance number, etc., is essentially in custody.
That's right.
But being in custody typically is something that you think of as the police doing when you've done something wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean that custody in the way that you're using it is a bad thing.
No, the creation of the legal entity, sometimes known as a straw man or a straw party, allows men and women, one, to function in commerce, and two, to accept the benefit privileges provided by the state.
What kind of things
such
are
as
that?
Such as national health insurance, national insurance, the dole, clothes, food, heat.
Right.
No, it don't enjoy nothing about being me and you, but we like the idea of making it better, but we just can't be bothered. So what more can we do? Yes, we like the idea. I don't enjoy you.
A corporate entity is a benefit privilege to the straw man or to that legal fiction.
So what we're actually talking about is that we are in custody, we don't know that we have a legal fiction, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, because the majority of the people in this country and everybody that operates this system worldwide under the International Monetary Fund, we hope that the vast majority of people are fed, sheltered and watered. But unfortunately, as we start seeing these systems break down and not operate to the benefits of the people, this is where things start going wrong.
Fine, so it's entirely possible that these systems have changed over the years and become more draconian and unfair against men and women.
Like myself and Vincent will say, the system itself is neutral and can be operated for the benefits of men and women. It all depends on the level of education of the men and women in society and who is pulling the levers.
Absolutely. That's an important point. We still have legally elected representatives. The system that we're operating in is just not the same system that we understand it to be. It's a parallel system, and we have to understand exactly who we are as individuals and how we can operate in this system, and that's what we're going to be looking out for throughout the show with Vincent and also with Dominic.
Then we cannot face the Lord. So I hope that you find what it is you're looking for. Yes, I hope that you find what it is you're looking for.
The City of London is renowned worldwide for being a centre for markets. Now, markets is where merchants work. So there's mercantile law. Now, mercantile law is based on admiralty. So if we look around us, particularly here in the city, we can find a great deal of symbols that relate to admiralty.
'Cause you are beautiful to me, I can't deny. See, there are some things that we cannot face alone. So I hope that you find what it is you're looking for.
We're still here in the city-state of London, but we've just taken a short walk from Pudding Lane, down King William Street in fact, to the Bank of England. Now Dominic, the Bank of England is quite an important piece to understand in all of this, because surely this is the People's Bank, isn't it?
Well, we believe it was the People's Bank in 1946 when it was taken from private hands, allegedly, into the public. But unfortunately, as it says in the statutes, the shareholders from the private Bank of England did a one-to-one stock swap with the new bank. So the private shareholders are still the public, are the shareholders of the public bank.
So on the news, we're forever hearing about the Bank of England and how it's going to be issuing currency and doing things for the people of the United Kingdom. So is this actually our bank?
Well, the building might be the People's Bank of England, but in 1946, when it was taken into the public, there was a one-to-one stock swap with the private shareholders from the private Bank of England. Therefore, even though the bank building itself might be in public hands, the shareholders, of whom I've yet to find a list, are private.
So you're saying that where we are at the moment is that the Bank of England serves interests other than those of the people of the United Kingdom, i.e. a list of potential investors whose names remain private?
It could well be, Adrian. And if you look at the definition of the word "of," in a legal dictionary, it can also mean without.
So that means the bank without England?
Correct.
What does that actually mean?
Well, it would appear that the Bank of England behaves in the same manner that the Federal Reserve does, which is known to be a private bank that issues private currency.
So if an organisation is issuing private currency, the interest that it puts on it, where does that actually go?
Well, that's a question for another day, Adrian, because I think it might create too much controversy. But, you know, we can talk about that at a later time.
Absolutely. So the currency that's issued by the Bank of England, which at the moment is the sole organisation able to issue currency in this country, is that backed by anything like gold? I mean, this is a pretty substantial building.
It used to be backed by gold until about 1914, where you could go in and take a £5 note or a £10 note into the Bank of England and have it redeemed by gold or silver coin.
The 1914 is quite an important historical date because it's the start of the First World War.
Policy remains the same no matter what the people want. What if those vaunted differences between Democrat and Republican were actually just minor disagreements? What if both parties just want power and are willing to have young people fight meaningless wars in order to enhance that power? What if both parties continue to fight the war on drugs just to give bureaucrats and cops bigger budgets and more jobs? What if government policies didn't change when government leaders did? What if no matter who won an election, government stayed the same? What if government was really a revolving door for political hacks bent on exploiting the people once they're in charge? What if both parties supported welfare, war, debt, bailouts, and big government? What if the rhetoric that candidates displayed on the campaign trail was dumped after electoral victory? What if Barack Obama campaigned as an anti-war, pro-civil liberties candidate and then waged senseless wars while assaulting your rights that the Constitution is supposed to protect? What if George W. Bush campaigned on a platform of non-intervention and small government and then waged a foreign policy of muscular military intervention and a domestic policy of vast government borrowing and growth? What if Bill Clinton declared that the era of big government was over, but actually just convinced Republicans like Newt Gingrich that they can get what they want out of big government too? What if the Republicans went along with it? What if Ronald Reagan spent 6 years running for president, promising to shrink the government, but then the government grew while he was in the White House? What if, notwithstanding Reagan's ideas and cheerfulness and libertarian rhetoric, there really was no Reagan revolution at all? What if all this is happening again? What if Rick Santorum is being embraced by voters who want small government, even though Senator Santorum voted for the Patriot Act, for an expansion of Medicare, and for raising the debt ceiling by trillions of dollars? What if Mitt Romney is being embraced by voters who want anyone but Barack Obama, but they don't realize that Mitt Romney might as well be Barack Obama on everything from warfare to welfare? What if Ron Paul is being ignored by the media, not because, as it claims, he's unappealing or unelectable, but because he doesn't fit into the pre-manufactured public opinion mold used by the establishment to pigeonhole the electorate and create the so-called narrative that drives media coverage of elections? What if the biggest difference between most candidates was not substance, but style? What if those stylistic differences were packaged as substantive ones to reinforce the illusion of a difference between Democrats and Republicans? What if Mitt Romney wins and ends up continuing most of the same policies that Barack Obama promoted? What if Barack Obama's policies, too, are merely extensions of those from George W. Bush? What if a government that manipulated us could be fired? What if a government that lacked the true and knowing consent of the governed could be dismissed? What if it were possible to have a real game changer? What if we need a Ron Paul to preserve and protect our freedoms from the government? What if we could make elections matter again? What if we could do something about this?